In the dark silence of the galactic void, the alien council convenes, mocking humanity's supposed weakness. But when a lone human cargo ship enters their space, they scoff, dismissing it as a minor nuisance. However, their arrogance quickly turns to terror as the seemingly insignificant ship delivers a devastating blow that no one saw coming. The power imbalance becomes painfully clear, and that's before Earth even responds. The council room was dark, shrouded in an atmosphere of smug superiority. 8 alien commanders sat at their massive, oval table, each one meticulously analyzing the data, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They'd gathered to discuss the last-ditch effort of the Terran coalition, a human cargo ship that had strayed into their territory. "They thought they could challenge us with a cargo ship?" One of the commanders sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm, the arrogance practically vibrating in the air. "Let them bring their primitive fleets," another added with a flick of a hand, as though brushing aside an insignificant fly. "They'll fall like all the others. We will break them in moments." The council chuckled, the sound rich with condescension. The human race had never stood a chance against their advanced warships, their superior technology, and their millennia of experience. Every one of them believed that Earth was nothing more than a desperate remnant clinging to its existence, with outdated tech and primitive tactics, but their mockery was about to be cut short. At that very moment, the silent hum of the cargo ship's engines reverberated through the void. The Council's intelligence officers glanced at the readouts, shaking their heads in disbelief. "Another fool passing through," one murmured. "Just a cargo ship, probably lost." "Send a warning. Make sure they know they've crossed the line," the first commander ordered, clearly uninterested. "Then we'll redirect our efforts. We have more pressing matters than this." The moment their words left the air, the cargo ship entered the alien Flagship's sensor range. It wasn't a surprise, just a casual, insignificant blip on the radar. But then, just as casually, it struck. The cargo ship launched a series of missiles. Not precision weapons, not the sophisticated bombardment the aliens had expected from Earth's military might. No, it was something simpler, more brutal, less predictable. In an instant, the flagship's shields began to collapse, their once impenetrable defenses unraveling before the primitive human technology. The commanders went silent, their smirks vanishing. The data feeds came alive with panic. "What is this? The shields they're failing. We've been breached." The flagship's once imposing frame was now shaking violently. The first blast tore a massive hole in the outer hull. The second tore through vital systems, creating a violent shockwave that spread through the ship's center. Systems began failing, sparks flying in all directions. Crew members screamed, helpless in the chaos. "Impossible. This can't be happening. They don't have this kind of firepower." Yet here it was. Earth's cargo ship, seemingly incapable of inflicting any significant harm, had just crippled their flagship with brutal simplicity. The aliens' advanced technology, their intricate shields, their towering ships, all were undone by the humans' unexpected ingenuity and a cold, pragmatic approach. The panic in the council chamber was palpable. These beings who had watched entire worlds fall to their superior strategies were now trembling, their once unshakable confidence now shattered by the very thing they had underestimated. They laughed. Then they stopped. One of the commanders slammed his fist onto the table, his anger radiating through the room. "Activate reinforcements! Get us the hell out of here!" But it was already too late. The cargo ship, simple, seemingly insignificant, had done what the alien armada had assumed was impossible, and it had done it effortlessly. "We're going to lose," another muttered, as the realization dawned on him. The flagship, once the pride of the alien fleet, had been ripped apart in the blink of an eye. But it wasn't the end. No, that was only the beginning. The human cargo ship, still intact, drifted silently in the aftermath. And that was before Earth even responded. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't. The bridge of the alien fleet flagship was a cacophony of frantic voices and flashing red lights. The hum of the failing engines reverberated through the steel walls, and the air was thick with the tension of realization. They had underestimated the humans. Their arrogance had led them here, to this moment of terror. The mighty alien empire, which had crushed civilizations across the galaxy, was now crippled by a single human cargo ship. "Report!" The lead commander's voice cracked through the chaos, his hands trembling as he stared at the scattered holoscreens. Data streams were failing, sensors were offline. The once imposing control panel now flickered with distorted images of the surrounding void. "Reinforcements are en route, but it'll take too long," one of the officers said, her voice tight with panic. "We're sitting ducks. They should have never crossed into human space," another officer spat, rage thick in his tone. "We're the Empire. We should have annihilated them on sight." The lead commander didn't respond to the accusation. He was staring at the dimming screen, watching the cargo ship, so simple, so insignificant, drift untouched through the wreckage of their flagship. It was impossible. The humans didn't have this kind of technology. "How did they breach our shields?" His voice was a whisper, the words barely audible over the panic in the room. One officer quickly brought up the schematic, displaying the ship's systems. It was a cargo vessel, a rusting, decaying piece of human industry. It wasn't equipped with advanced weaponry. It wasn't supposed to have this kind of firepower, but something had turned the tides. Something beyond their comprehension, low-tech, primitive. "How?" the commander asked again, his fists clenched in frustration. "Sir," another officer called out, "their energy signature is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's as though they adapted to our own systems and used it against us." The commander gritted his teeth. The human ship had turned their own technology into a weapon. Their arrogance had blinded them to the fact that the humans were no longer the weaklings they had once dismissed. "We need to initiate evasive maneuvers. Full power to engines." The commander barked, his voice cutting through the panic like a whip. But it was too late. The damage was done. The flagship was doomed. As the alien officers scrambled to make sense of the situation, another blast rocked the ship. It was so powerful this time that it sent the entire structure into a tailspin. The walls buckled and the floor tilted as though the ship were alive and struggling against its impending death. "All crew members abandon ship." The emergency alarms blared, their shrill wail slicing through the panic. "I repeat, abandon ship." But even as the order was given, it was clear that there was no escape. The ship was too far gone. The alien pride and arrogance that had once been their greatest asset were now their greatest downfall. The cargo ship, just a cargo ship, as they had so flippantly dismissed it, had delivered the final blow. The once proud flagship was now a shattered wreck. From the observation deck, a lone officer watched as their once invincible warship tumbled through space, its once glorious silhouette now reduced to twisted metal and sparks. The coldness of space seemed to embrace the wreckage, as though it were the final, unyielding judgment upon the alien arrogance. In the distance, the human cargo ship remained, silent, untouched. It was like a ghost in the void, simple, unassuming, but now undeniably the victor, and still no one understood why. How had humanity achieved such power with their primitive ships and outdated technology? Meanwhile, the human fleet sat in the shadows. No one had yet understood the depth of the human will or the power that came from desperation. The cargo ship, its name lost to time, was just the beginning. The aliens had learned a costly lesson: never underestimate the humans. Their strength was not in their technology, but in their resolve. Back on Earth, no one knew the scale of the victory. To the people of the planet, it was just another military operation, one that had succeeded against all odds. But in the cold, dark void of space, an empire was crumbling, and humanity had only just begun to fight back. In the coming days, the Galactic Council would scramble to make sense of this catastrophic defeat. They would search for answers, but they would find none. For the truth was simple: humans had no intention of fighting the way the galaxy expected. They were fighting for survival, fighting with a ferocity that the aliens would never comprehend. They thought it was mercy, the lead commander muttered as he watched the remaining pieces of their fleet fall apart. It wasn't. And in the darkness of space, a new chapter in galactic history had begun. One where humanity, the weakest of the known civilizations, had delivered a blow no one would forget. The aftermath of the battle was a stillness that stretched across the cosmos, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The alien flagship, once a symbol of their superiority, now drifted in space, crippled and broken. Its once gleaming surface was charred and torn, the result of a seemingly insignificant human ship. The remains of the once proud fleet were scattered, like debris, remnants of an empire that had crumbled under its own arrogance. Inside the darkened command room of the Alien Council, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The commanders, who had once looked down on humanity with disdain, now found themselves silent, their pride shattered. They had lost to a human ship, a vessel they had dismissed as nothing more than a piece of junk, a relic of a dying civilization. "Prepare. The reinforcements," the lead commander ordered, his voice low and filled with anger. His once confident tone had been replaced by a cold, calculated determination. "We cannot allow this to continue." His orders were swift, but his mind was racing. How had this happened? How had the humans, with their primitive technology, managed to destroy a flagship that had been the pride of their fleet for centuries? The answer eluded him, slipping through his grasp like water. It was as if the universe itself had conspired to humble them. "Sir, the reinforcements are on their way," one of the officers said, her voice shaky. "But they will not arrive in time. We cannot survive another attack." The lead commander slammed his fist onto the console in front of him, the sound echoing through the room. "We cannot afford to fail now. We need to regroup and counterattack. Earth cannot be allowed to think they have the upper hand." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The humans had done the impossible. They had taken down their flagship with a single strike, and there was no guarantee they wouldn't do the same to the reinforcements. Their technology was primitive, yes, but it was unpredictable, dangerous in ways the Council had never anticipated. The depths of space, the human cargo ship continued its silent drift, a small, unremarkable vessel in the vast expanse. Its crew was unaware of the full extent of their victory. They had completed their mission, delivering a devastating blow to an alien empire, but their journey was far from over. The ship's captain, a seasoned veteran who had seen countless battles, stood at the helm, his expression grim. He had known the risks when he set out, but even he hadn't anticipated the full scale of what they had just accomplished. The alien flagship, the symbol of their power, had been reduced to nothing more than scrap metal. But now, the cargo ship was vulnerable. Its systems were strained, its hull damaged from the battle. There was no way to know when the alien reinforcements would arrive. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the fleet," the communications officer said, her voice tense. "They're requesting our immediate return, but the alien reinforcements are moving toward us." The captain's jaw tightened. He knew they were running out of time. "Get us moving. We need to regroup with the rest of the fleet. If we stay out here too long, we'll be sitting ducks." The crew worked quickly, rerouting power to the engines, trying to repair the damaged systems. But the feeling of uncertainty was inescapable. They had struck a powerful blow, but they were far from safe. The humans had no intention of retreating, but they knew they had to be cautious. They had no idea how many alien ships were coming or how powerful they might be. The empire they had just wounded was vast, and retaliation was inevitable. Back on the alien flagship, the commanders were already making plans for retaliation. The loss of their prized ship had left them humiliated, but it had also fueled their desire for revenge. They had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would cost them dearly. They would make sure of it. We cannot allow this to stand, the lead commander growled, his fists clenched in anger. We will show them what happens when they dare challenge the might of the Empire. But even as he spoke, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The humans had done the unthinkable. What other surprises could they be hiding? What other weapons or strategies did they possess that the Council had yet to discover? We need to escalate, another commander said, his voice cold and calculated. We can no longer afford to underestimate them. We must destroy their fleets before they can regroup. The lead commander nodded, his mind racing. Send word to the rest of the fleet. Prepare for a full-scale assault. We'll wipe them out once and for all. But even as he gave the orders, he knew that things had changed. The balance of power had shifted. Humanity, once considered weak and insignificant, had shown that they could strike with devastating force. The aliens had underestimated their enemy, and now they would pay the price. The vastness of space stretched before them, both an ally and an enemy. It was the unknown that lay ahead, and neither side could fully comprehend the consequences of the war that was about to unfold. The galaxy was on the brink of something much larger than anyone could have imagined. For the humans, this was only the beginning. They had struck a blow for survival, but the war was far from over. The cargo ship had completed its mission, but now humanity's true strength would be tested. The alien empire had underestimated them, and they would soon learn that humanity was not to be trifled with. And so, as the darkness of space encroached upon them, both sides prepared for what was coming next. The true battle had just begun. The silence of space was suffocating. The cold, vast emptiness seemed to stretch endlessly around both fleets, like a canvas waiting to be painted with blood and fire. For the alien commanders, the defeat had been a wound to their pride, and the scars of it would never fade. But pride wasn't enough to keep them alive. They had learned too late that their invincibility was a myth. On the human cargo ship, the crew knew that their small victory had been a catalyst. The moment they'd crippled the alien flagship, they had made an enemy of an empire that would stop at nothing to avenge its loss. The captain paced the dimly lit bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of him. The alien reinforcements were coming fast. The question wasn't if they'd fight, but whether they could survive the onslaught. "Captain," the communications officer interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "They're coming. The alien fleet. It's massive. We don't have enough firepower to hold them off." The captain nodded, his gaze steely. He had been in enough battles to know that fear was a luxury they couldn't afford. They had already accomplished the impossible by taking down the flagship, but there was no time to dwell on that victory. The real test was still ahead. Reinforce the shields, patch up the hull. We need to be ready for what's coming, and get a message out to command. Tell them we're holding the line. He turned to the helmsman, his voice steady. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not going down without a fight. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the crew worked frantically to make the necessary repairs. But even as they scrambled to brace themselves, a cold realization settled in. No matter how hard they tried, they were vastly outgunned. They were alone. As the alien fleet neared, the captain's thoughts went to the rest of humanity, to Earth, to the future. A fight like this would shape everything. They had to win, but how? He didn't have an answer. But he would fight. That was all he could do. The alien fleet arrived in force, a massive armada that stretched across the horizon of space. Their ships, sleek and deadly, moved with deadly precision like wolves circling their prey. The human cargo ship, a relic of Earth's industrial age, appeared as nothing more than a blip in the vastness of the galactic battlefield. The alien commander's voice crackled through the comms, filled with barely contained fury. "You think you can challenge us, human? You're nothing more than insects. Your time is over." The human captain stood tall, despite the overwhelming odds. "We've already shown you what we can do. We're not running. We're not afraid. You've underestimated us, and now you'll learn the hard way." There was a moment of silence before the alien commander spoke again, his tone filled with disdain. "You will regret this decision." With that, the battle began. The alien ships opened fire with devastating force, their weapons cutting through space like hot knives through butter. But the human ship wasn't helpless. It zigzagged through the oncoming barrage, its damaged hull groaning under the strain, but still functional enough to fire back. The small human cargo ship, a symbol of survival and defiance, unleashed everything it had. The missiles it fired were crude compared to the alien fleet's advanced weaponry, but they were lethal in their own right. One missile struck the lead alien ship with a deafening explosion, sending shockwaves through the entire fleet. The ship's shields flickered, failing to absorb the blast. It began to spiral out of control, a massive fireball in the cold expanse of space. The alien fleet's arrogance faltered for a split second, but that second was all the humans needed. Captain barked orders as his crew worked in overdrive, using their ship's agility to outmaneuver the alien ships. Each evasive move brought them closer to the remaining enemy vessels. Despite the odds, the cargo ship held its ground, its small but deadly payload forcing the alien fleet to react. And then the tide shifted. Another explosion rocked the battlefield. This time, it was the Flagship. The remains of the once mighty ship, now a twisted wreck, were obliterated by a second barrage from the human cargo ship. The alien commander's voice returned, now filled with desperation. "What are you doing? You can't win. His words were cut short by another blast. The alien fleet, no longer as confident as before, began to retreat. The human cargo ship had not only survived, but had turned the tide of battle in its favor. The once proud empire, who had believed themselves to be invincible, was now faltering. The message was clear. Humanity had not only fought back, they had won. As the alien ships began to withdraw, the human captain looked at his crew, his voice calm but resolute. "We did it, but this is far from over. We've just shown them a glimpse of what humanity is capable of." He paused for a moment, allowing the weight of their victory to settle over him. It wasn't a complete victory, not yet, but it was a start. The empire that had threatened Earth was now on the run, and for the first time in galactic history, the tables had turned. The captain turned his gaze back to the fading alien fleet. They would be back, but next time they would be prepared. The humans weren't just a nuisance anymore. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the battle smoke cleared and the final alien ships retreated into the darkness, the human cargo ship drifted in silence. The crew could feel the weight of their victory, but they knew that the war was far from over. The empire they had just humiliated would not forget this day. The captain exhaled, staring into the cold expanse of space. And they thought it was mercy. It wasn't. The final words echoed through the comms, a declaration that would be remembered across the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay.